You've talked a number of times about a redress scheme. Could you explain what exactly that is? Is that the same as financial compensation for suffering? Could you explain the redress system, please?
Thank you very much. Redress is a term that we're using broadly. Let me just explain a couple of things. A number of the institutions have established various processes by which people that were abused can seek some form of response from that institution. So let me give you a couple of examples. In Queensland, following the Ford inquiry into institutional care, a redress scheme was established by the Queensland government, and there were set amounts available for people that could demonstrate to a fairly low level that they were abused within those institutions. And that was called the Ford Foundation or the Ford Inquiry. In Western Australia, there was also a redress scheme established by the Western Australian government for people that were in particular institutions and that were abused not only sexually but also physically and emotionally, and they had access to those redress schemes. Unfortunately, in Western Australia, when the government changed, they cut the amounts that were available by half, even after people had been assessed and were in fact given or were about to be given certain amounts. So that's one form of redress schemes. It's very interesting to note that in Victoria and New South Wales, there have been no redress schemes for people that have been in institutions, and that's an issue that we'll be looking at. The second is the actual institutions themselves. So non-government institutions have established various processes. So, for example, the Catholic Church, you would have heard about, has a process called Towards Healing, or in Melbourne, the Melbourne Response. And that's a process by which there is an investigation into the claims made, and there are a number of responses, including financial compensation, counselling support, apologies, and pastoral care. You will also have heard of much criticism of those schemes. But the Anglican Church and a number of the other churches and non-government agencies have their own schemes available. And in a sense, they're redress schemes. The third we talk about in the same language, although it's a little different, is civil claims, where you can actually put in a claim against the institution by commencing a civil law action. And Prue can talk about that more to people that are interested. And that is where there is actually an action commenced within either the District or Supreme Court. Most of those settle. Very few of them actually go to court, but they are complex matters, and you would be aware that in relation to a number of claims, they have been thwarted because of what's called the statute of limitations. In other words, there are time periods within which you must put a claim, and if you're outside of those, you have to get the court to agree to allow you to proceed with the action. They're also very complex and emotionally draining. They take some time, but nevertheless, they're available. What we're doing is trying to look at what is the best set of measures or processes that could be put in place to deal with the historic claims, that is, abuse that has already taken place, across government and non-government institutions. The second is to look at what processes we need to put in place for future abuse, where abuse occurs after the Royal Commission has ceased, and what are the most appropriate arrangements there. And that includes looking at insurance arrangements, the victims of crime arrangements, and a number of other processes. So when we talk about redress, we're talking a broad concept applying in non-government and government institutions, and in a sense includes both civil and non-civil claims. The other point about redress is it's not always about the money. It is often about the apology. It's about, for some, pastoral care. For some, it's about spiritual support. For others, it may be a range of different options that people are seeking. So redress is not just about money, but often money is a component of it.